Hello everybody, this is the second video in my series about the chromatic harmonica. Thank you very much for being here. Hopefully that means you've seen my first video and you've come back for more. So thanks very much for being here and watching this one. In the first video I explained the difference between a diatonic harmonica and a chromatic, and why I personally prefer a chromatic. But still, there's more to explain about what a chromatic harmonica is and why should you play one. First of all, the chromatic harmonica has got quite a pleasant sound. You can't really sort of compare it to anything. Some people compare the chromatic harmonica with a sound somewhere between a violin and a oboe. I don't know how you can compare it, but a chromatic harmonica has got quite a distinctive sound. Now, as a player, for yourself, the chromatic harmonica doesn't sound too loud. What do I mean by that? It's actually quite easy to practice. It doesn't get you into trouble with your neighbours. For instance, you know, if you try a saxophone, you might have to come to certain terms with your neighbours as to when you practice it, so you don't annoy anyone else, because a saxophone can be heard usually 2 or 3 houses away, or a piano, or you know, even certain other instruments sound very loud, and you have to be very careful and considerate towards your neighbours. The harmonica is quite a pleasant sound. You can practice it anywhere without annoying anybody. So it's actually quite a good thing. A harmonica is not suitable for every type of music. So you wouldn't play really, say for instance, house music or trance or anything like that on a harmonica, and not really suitable. The chromatic harmonica is particularly suitable for really anything melodic instruments. If you want to play a melody, something of a melody, and it can be anything. It can be classical music or jazz. You know, there seems to be a particular love between chromatic harmonica players in the UK, specifically towards jazz music. Quite suitable and very nice. But also I personally like classical music, so I prefer to play classical music on chromatic harmonica. But it also lends itself to all sorts of other music, like traditional music, Scottish, Celtic, Irish, folk music, things like that. So it's not just restricted. Another thing that I find a bit a problem with diatonics, if I can just once more mention the comparison to a diatonic harmonica. The diatonic harmonica, when you play it in the nicest possible way, cross harp in a different key, and etc., etc. I won't go into the further details, but the diatonic harmonica is quite restricted, more restricted so than the chromatic. Diatonic harmonica seems to lend itself more for blues. And I know there's one diatonic player that specifically tries everything his hardest to play rock music on a diatonic harmonica. But usually the diatonic is restricted to mostly blues. Again, I think with the chromatic harmonica you've got more choice of what you want to do in types of music. But again, there is music that doesn't really sound good on a chromatic harmonica, but there's a lot of music that actually does. So, and again, the harmonica is also, it's an acoustic instrument, so you can take it anywhere with you. Sit in the back garden to play it, or you know, on a trip, on a trip, on a walking, hiking trip or something. You can just sit somewhere in a field and play the harmonica or whatever. So it's quite versatile. And again, it's not too loud, not so it annoys things. There are quite a few players that have problems with pets. Certain dogs can't cope with the sound of the harmonica apparently. They start yapping along, and again, of all these examples, anything I mention, you can find lots of examples on YouTube. People playing a harmonica and a dog going absolutely mad and yapping along, and then whatever else, or a cat or anything like that. But generally speaking, the chromatic harmonica is quite versatile, is very pleasant, not too loud. If you want to play it loud, there's always a possibility to use an amplifying system with a microphone or anything like that, but in itself it's not that loud. So very pleasant sound. Not quite, you can't put it in a really category. I mean, a harmonica just sounds like a harmonica, that's what it is. So again, and also, and this is something that I'm personally interested in myself, is you can play the chromatic harmonica with others, like in an ensemble, like a little mini orchestra, or you know, an ensemble of some sort. And this is that's particularly what I'm interested in. Even some players have been known to play with orchestras, so the harmonica can be played with an orchestra. If you look at the late Franz Kmel, the Austrian harmonica player, and also to Robert Bonfiglio in America, he plays with orchestras. So the harmonica can be played with an orchestra in an orchestral role. That's the word I was looking for. But mainly the chromatic harmonica is for those people that want to play an instrument melodically. You want to play melodies. You know a tune, or you hear a tune, and you just want to play that on an instrument. And for that kind of thing, the chromatic harmonica is really good. So maybe it helps. By any means, look up as many videos as you can about the chromatic harmonica. There's some really good players out there that could maybe inspire other people to start playing. I myself am a member of the National Harmonica League, or NHL, and I'm also a volunteer and part of the organisation for a national event that we held once a year in June time in the Birmingham area of the UK. It was just called a Chromatic Weekend, where we teach people, try to get people interested in the chromatic harmonica, and we have workshops, a series of workshops, and etc, etc. So we're trying to promote the use of the chromatic harmonica, and we're trying to improve people's playing on that chromatic harmonica. Now, as I said in the first video, to start playing a chromatic harmonica does take quite a bit of studying, but studying isn't always bad. It's not always something that is restricted or serious or anything like that. And I mean, you can study as you go along, and you can have fun on the way. It doesn't have to be studying sounds a bit like a obligatory, but it's not. And I think you'll find if you start studying the chromatic harmonica and really getting into how to play a certain melody, it actually gets quite interesting. Also, I myself am a big fan of the ability to read music. Particularly on the chromatic harmonica, it opens an extra world for you. It gives you access to a lot more music than you probably would do if you didn't read music. So it's quite advisable. I would advise you, if you do decide to go for a chromatic harmonica, please have a look into reading music. Because reading music, and I've done it myself, I'm not a great reader myself, reading music can be extremely difficult, especially for a piano, where your right hand does 2 to 3 notes at the same time, your left hand plays a couple of notes, and your right and left hand do all sorts of different things, and then at the same time you have to read about 5 or 6 notes at the same time, and plus figure everything else out. Very, very difficult for a piano. But for a harmonica, it's actually a lot simpler. There's only one melody line, and even though that can be quite complicated, but it's definitely worth looking into to get used to reading music, because that opens a whole new world and opens more perspective and more possibilities of what you can actually play on your chromatic harmonica. So again, this is just a little video, only chatting, nothing else, about the chromatic harmonica. Why should you buy one? How, what to expect when you buy one. Have a look on videos everywhere as much as you can. There's a couple of brilliant players that I would like to mention. First of all, there's a Brazilian guy called Marcelo Batista. Absolute fantastic player. Just look a couple of videos. Very, very, very good and very encouraging as well to start playing a chromatic harmonica. Then you've got other players. Philip Achille, generally known as the best harmonica player in the UK, and also a tutor in our next Chromatic Weekend event for the NHL in this coming June, next month. Absolutely fantastic player, incredible skill. And then there's also a few other players that you can have a look at. Robert Bonfiglio. Now, there's not that many live videos of Robert out there, but Robert Bonfiglio is, again, excellent player, superb player, and one of the very few that masters corner switch technique but again, we'll get into that later into this whole video series. But have a look around, see what the chromatic harmonica looks like. Try to find out what type of music is played on a chromatic harmonica and see if that speaks to you, if that attracts you to it. And then if it does, all you need to do is buy a chromatic harmonica and off you go. And the last thing is the size of a chromatic harmonica is always a discussion between various chromatic harmonica players. The most common chromatic harmonica is the size of 12 holes. Basically 12 holes, that is the size of the normal standard chromatic harmonica. If you buy a bigger one, they come in different sizes, so that's 12 hole, or if you get 2 holes more, 14 hole, they come in 14 hole or in 16 hole. Now the difference is, and again that's why I'm putting my finger on the lower end, so the 12 hole is actually this part of the chromatic harmonica. If you buy a bigger one, you get more notes at the bottom of the scale, so the lower notes at the bottom. I personally am a big fan of buying a 16 hole chromatic. The 16 hole, which is this one, is the largest chromatic harmonica that you can buy. And it gives you the extra octave and whole octave, because 4 holes on the chromatic harmonica is an octave. So 12 holes, like I said in the last video, 12 holes is 3 octaves, but any bigger harmonica you get an extra 4 holes. If it's 16, that gives you an extra lower octave. Now, I've known a lot of new harmonica players over the last 7-8 years since I've started playing the chromatic harmonica myself. And many new players are really happy with the first extra 4 holes at the bottom, because they sound really low. And again, we'll get to that later in the series when we get how to make a sound out of this and how to play the harmonica. But the 16 hole gives you an extra octave at the bottom, so the lower notes. And most new players just absolutely love the lower sounds. Again, like I said, we'll get into the sound of the harmonica in the next video, not just yet, but if you're considering about buying a chromatic harmonica, I would personally really recommend to go for a 16 hole. And you will love the extra 4 holes at the bottom, honestly. And it doesn't make so much difference in size anyway. So if you are considering buying a chromatic harmonica, then I would seriously consider buying a 16 hole. Obviously it's fine if you decide for a 12 hole. The 12 hole chromatic harmonica is still the same size as a concert flute. Gives you the same range as a concert flute. That's the argument that those people usually get that play a 12 hole. Classical players, classical music lovers usually tend to pretend to go for the 16 hole. So it enables you to play all the lower notes that often occur in classical music. But generally speaking, it's just for everybody. If you want to buy a new chromatic harmonica, just go for the 16 hole. Very, very much recommended. I hope this video helps. Again, like I said, look around. Find as many videos on YouTube about chromatic harmonicas as you can. See what it sounds like. See what music is played on them. See if it appeals to you. And then see if that's a reason for you to buy a chromatic harmonica and play it. Thanks very much for watching. And the next video again will be on how to play the chromatic harmonica. Thanks very much. Bye.